This podcast is brought to you by Primary Intelligence, the leader in win-loss analysis, focused on helping businesses uncover the unique story on how each sales rep can win more deals.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me on another rousing edition of Sales Intelligence Weekly, brought to you by Primary Intelligence. I'm Ryan Queller. Is the traditional marketing funnel dead? Is it dead? Is it kaput? Is it over? The way buyers interact with sellers has changed. The way buyers research and learn about solutions has changed. The way we build trust, the time sellers have with buyers, the way we educate our buyers, it has all changed. And I'm here to tell you right here and now, it's never going to stop changing or evolving. Just deal with it. It has changed, gonna continue. As sellers and marketers, it can be hard to keep up. It can be difficult to understand what's working and what's truly going on within your buyer's journey. The traditional marketing funnel may no longer apply to your buyers, which again poses the question, is the traditional marketing funnel dead? Chewing on this question with me today is my friend Matt Cross, Growth Marketing Manager at Notch. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We want to hear a little bit about you. Before we get into the show, tell us about you. Who is this enigma?
Enigma. So I'm Matt Cross. So I work with businesses to grow using content, social, and community. I was previously a chef and a salesperson, turned marketer, turned growth marketer. So now I spend most of my time talking about the customer journey, how to accelerate the customer journey with Notch, and then also talking about chocolate, which is actually the best kind of content out there. And so my wife and I own a chocolate company called Harvest Chocolate.
Okay, pause. Okay, I know our producer's listening right now and she's going to be really angry with me. I don't care. We're going to change the show right now. We're going to talk about chocolate. So, okay, chocolatier, chocolate maker. What are you? When you say you own a I've never met anybody that does this. So tell me more about this.
Yeah. So we are chocolate makers. So we actually make the chocolate. So we import cocoa beans from all over the world because kind of like wine, where cocoa beans are grown impacts their flavor in the end.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole line of single origin chocolates where you can taste from one end like fruity and bright to like rich and chocolatey and all the way in between. And so we roast them, we bring them here, we roast them and we grind them with big stone grinders into chocolate, which it's kind of like I don't know, I think about like craft beer and like we're all out there drinking Bud Light right now. There's a whole world of better chocolate for us. There's
a whole world of something better than Bud Light is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, our friends at Budweiser.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. So Matt, that's awesome. Tell us a little about Notch. Okay. And frankly, Johnny poked me and we got to get back to the story. Tell me a little bit about Notch.
Yeah, so Notch is cool. It's customer journey intelligence software. So we help you connect the journey to the business outcome and really show you that missing middle of the funnel beyond just first touch and last touch attribution. And as a Notch employee, I get to use it, and I use it a lot to show the efforts of our organic and paid social programs and how they're tying to conversions on the website. So it makes those conversations internally for me so much easier than just, but look at the views over here.
But look over here. Yeah. So you just said the missing middle. We're going to have to go there in a second, because I think that might be the key word that we need to home in on. But before we do that, yes or no? Okay. Ready? Yes or no? Okay. Is the traditional marketing funnel dead?
I think so. I say yes.
Okay, tell me why. Okay. Why do you say yes?
I think it looks a little more like a plate of spaghetti than it does a funnel.
And that's saying a lot coming from a former chef, right? So, right. So why does it look like a plate of spaghetti? Tell me more.
I think it's that, customers don't move in a linear line. as much as you can plan out all of your journey and their next best actions that you want them to take, the audience is always going to take the action that they want to take or need to take at that time. So in some of the notch data that we see, it's not that somebody consumes a top of funnel piece of content and they move to a middle funnel piece of content and then they move to something that is like lower funnel and converts. They bounce back and forth across the above and below the top of funnel to the bottom of the funnel and back again. And we see this in our notch data a lot, which is kind of interesting how often like top of funnel blog posts show up in a journey that converts.
Okay, so I love that answer, and that actually makes a lot of sense and aligns to some of the research that we've been seeing, and or some of the outputs of the research that we've been conducting at Primary Intelligence. There is no linear line in a buying cycle, in the pre-buying cycle, and the education and the buyer's journey, the early part of the buyer journey. It's all over the place, but it's always been so mysterious. And you mentioned this missing middle, and I want to understand that more. But before we get there, let's talk about some changes. So what changes have you seen maybe over the last 10, maybe even more recent, last 5 years? What's changed?
I think that buyers are spending more time engaging and understanding and doing research, having casual conversations with their peers, or before they engage in a sales conversation with the company. So it's kind of one of the reasons why I transitioned from sales to marketing, is that I saw this change happening about 4-ish years ago. I was getting a lot of demo requests that people had no idea about the product because it wasn't available. And so you're having a lot of conversations, people just hey, what does this thing do? I have no idea. Here's what I'm thinking about. And, that people want to spend more time on doing that research themselves so that when they do have the conversation, they're more informed and ready to have a good conversation about their problem and the solution for it.
Okay, so that's both incredible and powerful and great for the customer, the buyer, the prospect, whatever you want to call them, but it's also potentially damaging, I think, because that they have paradigms that are formulated that might be misconstrued. But beyond that, from your perspective, what is the most important part maybe of that buyer or customer journey? Where are those moments that matter the most?
I think it's in the middle of the funnel, in the middle of the journey, really. Back to that missing middle idea.
Now back to that missing middle. Here we go. This is what I was hoping for. All right.
It's where journeys can either accelerate or break by providing the right piece of content, or that you're actually even just providing a way to move them to the next step in their journey. Whereas if you're not providing that in a way that helps them move in that direction, then they may just stop researching your product or service.
So if that's the most important, is that also the place where buyers take a left at Albuquerque like Bugs Bunny? Tell me about that missing middle. Is this the danger zone? What is this? Is this good? Is this bad?
It's always been there. It's just that a lot of attribution software runs off of first or last touch. And especially if you're running a if it's like a longer buying cycle or high consideration purchase that somebody's making, that takes longer and the risk is longer that person's going to take that left at Albuquerque. Same. And then what we see though is by seeing those journeys that maybe are a little bit shorter based on referral source or campaign, or what content they landed on, or what content was consumed in the middle of the journey, you can start building those journeys to have that shorter pathway to conversion. And that's where we say that you can accelerate the customer journey, but you need to be able to see where those places are and how those journeys are starting all the way through to where they're ending.
So is that the area of opportunity then for most organizations in accelerating the buying cycle of their customer?
Yeah, I think so. I think because most people are focused on, where it started and where it ended, but not much in what's going on in the middle, and are you answering their questions and providing the information that the buyer needs at that stage. So it's a good place to invest, especially right now, because you can show the impact of it.
Okay. So how do we go about finding what's most important to buyers in those most important times, right? In that missing middle.
Mm. So I think a measurement framework is really the key. So you can measure across your whole customer journey of where you are. It's kind of different for every organization, but being able to see how groups of your audience are moving across the journey. That's kind of how we look at it. So we have a audience building kind of group of metrics that tie up to KPIs and business outcomes. And then we have an audience engagement group of metrics. And then we have a pipeline creation group of metrics that all tie up to KPIs and business outcomes. So we're watching as people are moving across the different channels that we operate on. And that way we're able to see how they're moving, where we have opportunities to optimize and accelerate that cycle.
So this is the biggest part of the self-education. I'm connecting some dots here, right? So we've learned from previous shows and previous episodes that the amount of time that buyers are spending live with sellers has diminished greatly, down to maybe 5 to 10%, somewhere in there. A very, very small amount of time is actually face-to-face with the seller or the buyer. The vast majority that's happening on the front end, self-educating, these casual conversations that you were talking about. So how big is that missing middle where organizations, if they don't have the visibility to that missing middle, how much of that buyer journey, percentage-wise, roughly, are they actually missing?
It could be 2/3 to 3/4 of that buying journey. I mean, that's where it could be 6 months, it could be 18 months. It's hard to say, but it's a big portion of time where the audience spends their time there in the middle of the journey.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense to me why you would say that's where the area of greatest opportunity is in accelerating the buying cycle, because we don't know, and it could last anywhere, 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, 2 years, who knows how long it's going to take. So if let's go a little bit further. If the traditional marketing funnel is dead, what should go-to-market teams do instead?
I think it's, we're a go-to-market team, and we use just a measurement framework. Really, that's what we're using to measure and understand our own customer journey. And I think it really is back to tying your metrics and your KPIs to business outcomes, and having those right business outcomes that you're working towards. That's really, I think, what go-to-market teams need to be focused on now.
Why the outcomes? Why is that the most important place to focus right now?
So you're generating what the business needs. I think right now it's not growth at all costs anymore, and now you need to be able to tie your activities to the impact on the business more so than you did before. So being able to tie it up, all of your activities through your KPIs to business outcomes is what'll allow you to get to that executive level of decision making, and allow you to keep doing the program that's working or stop what's not working. I just find when you're talking about business outcomes, the higher up you go, the easier it gets to keep doing what you're doing if you're delivering on those business outcomes.
And what you're doing is really giving the higher ups more reasons to say yes to what you're attempting to do. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a nuanced delineation between internal versus external marketing. And if you don't have the internal support, the external marketing doesn't happen. Am I kind of following am I picking up what you're laying down, Matt?
I love what you're talking about, the internal marketing, because I do think I've always said that the internal sale is as important or more important than the external sale.
Tell me why. So I totally agree. 100% agree. Right. So tell me more. What you're thinking here.
You have to get everybody on board with what you're doing. And even if that's just bringing on a client, there's money, but you need to tell them why that client is the right client for them, and how they're going to use the product, and where the use case is, and build that support for that being a very good client, and how you're going to deliver on what you've promised to that client. But and I think in terms of marketing, it's just the visibility of showing what you're doing and having the right data and just to back up and support what the arguments that you're making, and then deliver on it. It just makes, so like always just talking and sharing that information internally with the people that are the stakeholders, really not even it just with everybody. We have a Slack channel called Positive Vibes, and I drop things in there all the time of things that I come across and seen, like a positive signal out on LinkedIn, just so that everybody can see that it's working and there's these positive things going on around it.
We have one of those internally as well. We call them success stories. I like Positive Vibes better. That sounds more, general and can be, whatever. Success stories it's like Uber business and it's a little lame. So noting that, we may be stealing Positive Vibes. Thank you for that. Well, I'll pay a nickel every time I say it. Okay. So how do we do this? How do we create a customer journey that actually facilitates growth? The measurement's important for the missing middle. How do we create this customer journey that facilitates growth?
I mean, I think it's back to business outcomes, right? Like you need the outcome. Like, so for us, it's like a demo request, or, maybe it's a email newsletter sign up or something like that, somewhere where, you're working to build that audience base. So like, email addresses in a CRM or social growth, things like that. And then how are you going to deliver that, and building out that journey before then? And we like to plan out the content up front. And then it goes back to that next best action versus next best audience action. You take your hypothesis, put it out there, and then watch and see how the audience responds. And then you need to test and adjust along the way, driving towards whatever that goal is that you have. Okay.
So there's I have my whiteboard over here, and about almost a third of it is quotes and sayings and things like this. And I have two up here that are coming to mind: a skew obfuscation and a spouse elucidation. It's a fun little, play on words. But the other one is stepping back from visibility so that zones of invisibility might come to light. Here's my question. How do you shed light on those dark spots? How do you shed light on those zones of invisibility for your buyer and your customer journey? How do you do this?
Yeah, back to the measurement framework, I think.
I'm sensing a pattern here, Matt. The measurement framework's really important.
Yes, we're big fans of measurement frameworks at Notch. But yeah, I mean, having that, like, and seeing that, because sometimes like you're not going to catch everything, right? But then sometimes you see that there are things that you need to dive deeper into. So for a client, once we did this email program, I think it was 7 emails sent out to like 750,000 people. So it was like big enough to make a difference. And we noticed that email 3 and email 5 were getting much higher open rates and click-throughs. And so, but what those people were doing is that they were going through and they were going to much lower funnel content. So they were farther along in the buyer cycle than other emails or whatever, right? So now you've identified those people, you've seen the content that resonated, and now you need to dig deeper into like all of that, right? Like what's going on there and how do we use all that information to form the next hypothesis that we're going to use to try to capture more of those people who are at that more of that level in the journey.
Help me unpack this for our listeners that are in the sales space, not the marketers who would understand exactly what you're talking about, but for our selling audience, what does that mean? Lower in the funnel. Why is that good? Why is that bad?
It means they've already have an awareness of their problem. They probably have more of an awareness of you as the solution, that at least that you can probably help them. And at least they're probably more willing and to have a conversation that's a little more meaningful than somebody that doesn't know who you are, or that they even have a problem, or that you help solve that problem.
So in essence, if I'm translating this into sales speak, the faster or the deeper we can get, the faster and the deeper we can get somebody in and through the funnel at a starting point that's closer to me, the better the shorter the buying cycle could be potentially. Am I following?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So,
So we all want,
I,
right? The shorter
I'm sorry,
buying.
one more time.
So we all want is the shorter buying cycle, right? Like, so that you get on a call with somebody and they're like, yep, I have this problem. I know that you're one of two companies that solve for this problem, and I have budget and I'm just looking to solve this in the next like 3 months.
No, I really like the, drawn out sales cycle where there's a lot of wishy-washy and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna buy, and then 6 months later they ghost you, and then 6 months later they're back. No, I prefer that. So I
Yeah.
like to start well down the road. I like that pain. It says nobody ever. So
No.
okay, this makes sense. So you made the transition from selling to marketing. So you understand why I'm asking some of these questions.
Mhm.
Help us understand from a starting position. Let's say I'm a listener right now, and I might be a marketer, and I am really good at the beginning, at the end, and that missing middle is kind of a head scratch to me. How do I start? How do I start this missing middle exploration?
I think first is getting alignment internally with stakeholders on the identifying the problem. That like, hey, we're using Google Analytics. It's only, or we're using this paid social. It's only showing us that this person clicked, and we know that this person, this is where they came from, and then this is where they converted. But there's this big gray area. We don't know what they did. And then if you can show some numbers like, hey, 1,000 people came in from this place, 4 of them converted. Why? We don't really know why. We don't know that we could get that. Can we get that number higher? What are those people out there doing, that didn't convert yet? It's not a bad thing. They could still just be, just not ready, and they're going to, come back later and convert, but it's not going to show to that original first attribution point. So I think always what I do is just build that internal alignment on the problem, that everyone's in agreement that the problem exists and that it's worth solving for. And then you can work on how do we solve for that problem and what resources do we have available to solve for that problem. But always just getting that internal marketing is step one, getting everybody on board that this is what we need to be working on. And then, then you can start working on it.
Who are those stakeholders typically that you need to get on board? For example, I know you may not need support, right? You may not need technical support or like customer facing technical support to be on board with this. Who are those right stakeholders that you need to go align with internally?
I always just start with my boss. First one, get them on board.
It's usually a good place to start, right?
Always
Step one, boss.
And then, internally, just that team, the marketing team. If you're in marketing, and then all the way up, you definitely always need an executive stakeholder, whether or not they're fully involved in the day-to-day, but at least that they are on board, that they know that this is a problem and it's worth solving for. That one's crucial if you really want to succeed.
Okay, crucial is a big word, dude. Why are they crucial?
They have the pull, they have the resources, and they can allocate resources. They can say this is a bigger problem, we need to solve for it, or they can say nope, we don't need to do this anymore. But it gives that shines the light on it at that level. I mean, it depends on the size of your organization. You might not need to go all the way to the top. We're a fairly small company, so we just go right to the top. But
I guess it depends on the organization, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is step one is identify those stakeholders who might have influence over over the initiative that you're planning on going, and then getting alignment with them.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had, winding our conversation down here, Matt, you've been phenomenal, man. Thank you for helping us understand this. And this is a barrier for most marketers and for many sellers. Most sellers, this is difficult to understand. They don't understand that missing middle, the importance of it, the importance of a measurement framework that's lost, right? It's not even known. We're ignorant to those things. So this is helpful to us understanding. If you had one piece of advice to leave our listeners, what would it be? And I know it's a terrible question, right? So, but let me ask it anyway, because I'm a terrible host. So, what's that one piece of advice?
I was just thinking about sales people, how like if you are prospecting out there and you're kind of getting nowhere and you're doing a ton of activity, and all the conversations you have are people are like, hey, this is cool, great, but like I don't have any money, and this isn't something I'm working on right now. Like that's the signal that like you're not you need to focus on the customer journey, I think.
Love that.
That's helpful. That was just
No,
my brain.
that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show today, man. This was helpful. Hope you're, by the way, do you ship nationwide your chocolate, or is it only local to where you're at?
We do ship nationwide, actually. Harvestcraftchocolate.com. We've got some snacking chocolate for everyone that is snacking on chocolate chips in the baking in their cupboard. Time to upgrade. And then we have some seasonal chocolate bars, gift sets all the time too. So yeah, come in harvestcraftchocolate.com. We ship nationwide.
You're going to get an order for my wife and I tonight. So, hey, thanks, Matt. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
And listeners, for more from our friends at Notch and from us here at Primary Intelligence, check out the show notes at www.primary-intel.com/podcast. And remember, no deal is out of reach. We'll see you next time.